Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, depending on where you are on our wonderful planet. And welcome to the November live stream. This month, we're going to be focused on the 12 essentials of management, and we're in a great location. One of the best locations we've been in this year. I don't want to say the best because obviously we've been in South Africa, we've been in the Netherlands, we've been all around. So I don't want to upset anyone. But we're here right now in Egypt, and we're actually here at the 6th Sharm 2024, which is for the Egyptian industry of insurers, or the insurance industry for Egypt as it's called. And we're delighted to be here sharing our insights with, I think there's around 1,200 delegates here as part of this conference. It's the 6th year of its of its operation, and it's founded by a brilliant man, by the chairman, Mr. Ala El-Zuhairi, who, if we have an opportunity, we maybe get a 5-minute, 10-minute interview with him at the back end of the live stream, but let's see how we get on. But yeah, welcome from here, live from Egypt, and we're very delighted to be here to share with you the 12 essentials of what we think we should focus on as great managers. If this is the first time that you've joined one of our live streams, we like to run these every single month. They will always be free. The whole focus of this is for us to try and share as much insight, best practice, and data as possible. We're collecting tons and tons of insight in our work with lots of different organizations from public, private, and third sector all around the world. So I'll spare with you all of the details. But what we wanted to do is to give you as much as possible based on the 12 most essential elements that we've come across and uncovered with great managers. If you have already been through the World Class Manager program, then of course these 12 areas will be quite familiar to you, or hopefully should be very familiar to you. And I wanted to share some of the data, some of the research, and some of our insight on this as well. Slightly different this month, because usually what we've got is lots of nice graphics on screen, but I think the best way to try and share this stuff with you, if you've not seen it before, is actually to just use some of the slides that we use. And this is what we would typically bring to life inside an organization to share with managers and to share with execs and leadership teams. So I thought maybe that's a good way to do it. Also, as we get towards the back end of the session, probably take around 20-25 minutes. If you have got some questions, some thoughts, some comments, maybe it's things that work really well in your own organization and you want to share them, or indeed it may have a very specific question, please feel free to drop that in whatever respective chat function you have. This is going out on multiple platforms, so I'm not sure how you interact with the chat function, but I'm sure there's something there. So please feel free to submit any questions. Or of course, if you're accessing this live on LinkedIn, then please put a question in or just DM myself or us, and we'll be happy to respond. If not in the session, maybe afterwards as well. Again, the whole focus here in Egypt this year is to, in a way, bring to life for the industry, for the insurance industry, of some of the people challenges that really will, in a way, hinder the productivity and the performance and the innovative ability of organizations. Everything is to do with people, right? If we want to grow our organizations, if we want to be more productive, if we want to be more efficient, all of this, unless you're, of course, employing solely robots and AI, at the moment, for the best part, is still human beings. And we focused a lot over the last 12 or so years finding out what great managers look like all around the world. So as I said, it probably helps to bring this to life with some visuals. And when we talk about what we call world-class managers, there are 12 really essential elements of what we think world-class managers do. And this is, if you've not come across them before, this is the Insurance Federation of Egypt's logo on the top right-hand corner of the screen. And as I said, if you've just joined the stream, we may have an opportunity to speak with the chairman later this morning, but we'll see, because this is a moving operation here. They've got 1,200 delegates from 34 countries, I believe, or maybe more. So he's a very busy man, but we'll see if we can get some time with him before the end of the stream. We started our research about 12 years ago in earnest, looking at what great managers did around the world, all the way from New Zealand through to Canada, interviewing CEOs, HR directors, frontline managers, and asking a very simple question. In your opinion, what does a world-class manager do? Now, we know that there are very different views on what great management should look like, but our view was to say, why don't we take this from the ground up? Let's talk to managers, frontline leaders, let's talk to employees of organizations and find out, in their opinion, what a great manager does in action. This is not an academic exercise. This is more of an anthropological view of saying, what do great managers actually do? What can we actually learn from them? And what might be applicable for people on a regular basis? Because the truth is, of course, that we're all very time poor. And how do we do this in the best way? We took those insights. We built a program, if you're not familiar with it, called World Class Manager. And we've now run that program for the last 8 years. Over 100,000 managers have been through our program in more than 50 countries around the world. We took the data and also published a book called How to Become a World Class Manager. funnily enough, which launched last year. And we've been the major journey has been in Europe and the US. And we're delighted because last week with Jarir Publishing in the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, we've now published the book in full Arabic. So again, part of the launch here in Egypt was to announce the launch of the book in full Arabic in partnership with our publishing partner, which is Kogan Page, and also Jarir Publishing. So we're overjoyed to have the book in Arabic, and we're beginning the process to launch that throughout the region as well. We've also have a global partnership with ACCA. So if you've come across us in the accounting space, then we've launched a global partnership recently to bring our program to I think about 250,000 members now of part of the ACCA membership network. So we're delighted to be in partnership with ACCA. Now, data. We collect lots and lots of data based on what managers tell us on a regular basis. We're absolutely addicted to this. And there are 24 modules as part of what we call our World-Class Manager Program. And I wanted to bring this to life for you because I've shared this maybe on some posts on LinkedIn, but maybe this is a much richer way to do it. And I thought this might be useful. Now, this could be useful for you either as an individual or for an organization. If you're really focused on developing your own individual skill as a manager, then I think this is very useful for you. If your focus is to build the collective management capability of your organization, then I think this is really useful for you as well. Now, this is looking at, based on all of the managers that we've got data on, they've told us what they think is important to focus on. And again, in the green and in the red, the green are the top 3 areas where managers feel like these are the most important pressing issues, and the red are the 3 that they feel are the least important or the least pressing issues. So in green, unless you can't see it there, the number 1 says difficult conversations, number 1. In at number 2 is optimizing time, and then at number 3 is managing conflict. Those are the 3 greens. In the red, the ones that people feel are the least important, we've got influencing for success, we've got 21st century management, and the 3rd area is what we call understanding the customer. Now, you may have a view on this. I have a view on this. I also think that the 3 areas that are top, I definitely agree, are probably the most pressing issues for managers. The bottom 3, I think, are the opportunity for managers. And that may sound like a really trite way to describe this, but if you look at, in a way, what we're looking for from managers in the organization, we're looking for managers who definitely have an impact, they influence, they understand stakeholder relationships, and they really understand who the organization or who the team is designed to deliver for, or whoever we serve, i.e. the customer or the client or the beneficiary. So I think, all of these are important, but I guess what we're recognizing from listening to managers is that the manager, if I talk about we, the Royal We Film managers globally based on our insight, there are a few key things that we are struggling with. I think the difficult conversations and managing conflict is more and more a part of the everyday challenge for your modern manager. We're working in such a complex way. We're working in such a hybrid way. We've got a tremendous amount of demands on us from leadership team members of the organization. I don't think we come across a leadership team member from the CEO to the CFO to the CMO to the CIO to the CHRO to the various other leaders of the organizations who don't have a view on what they think the manager should be doing. Every leadership team member has a very definite view on what they think the manager should be doing better. Members of the team have a view on what they think their manager should be doing better, because you've got people like me doing broadcasts and live streams and producing content with our team, which is based on what we think managers should do better. The expectation level of what people expect from a modern manager, I believe, has been ratcheted up, and there are now expected to be everything from a D&I expert to an ESG expert to a you're down with OPP, you know me expert, right? There's a tremendous amount of expectation on the manager, which in some cases is a challenge, because as a manager, you've got all of that to deal with. You've got your workload to deal with, as well as the team, as well as the stakeholders. It's a very demanding place to be. So with all of those things combined, I understand and agree that difficult conversations, managing conflict are a big issue. And the catch-all for all of this is the lack of time that people have. We talk about 2 key challenges, and I wanted to touch on these very briefly, not to try and take up the time, but 2 key things. One is the attention span of human beings. We know that this is being more and more challenged. There's articles like this. This was a research piece that the BBC had referenced a number of years ago about the shortening of the attention span that is now 1 second below a goldfish. Of course, it's not that the attention span of human beings has changed, because that would take thousands of years, maybe millennia. But the idea is that, of course, there are competing factions, many more competing factions for our attention span. And those competing factions are well-funded and designed to try and take as much time and attention away from you as possible. The problem is, of course, that the time that we've all got and the attention we've all got is limited, it's finite. And again, it forces us, or it should force us as an organization, to perhaps rethink the way that we're engaging and communicating with people in this modern era where people are tremendously in a way, time and attention poor. The time poor problem is, we think, a new problem, but it's always been a problem. It's an old problem. In 1974, this article was produced, which was called Who's Got the Monkey? It's a HBR article. And as far as I could tell, it's the second most downloaded article in HBR history, which gives you an idea of the time problem. And this article was written in 1974, right? So time's always been an issue. And I probably imagine if you went back to 1974, luckily I'm not old enough to remember 1974, but if I did, I would imagine that in 1974 people would say that they've got no time, and time was in much more supply many years before. The truth is, we look back with rose-tinted spectacles, and it's probably just not true. Now, a question I wanted to pose as we get into these 12 areas, just for you to think about. In terms of the role, what's the role of the manager in 2025? And this is a beautiful, unashamed setup for our live stream next month, which is going to be called Thrive in 25. That's our focus and our theme for 2025. And the focus here is looking at the skills that you feel are necessary to build, either for you individually or across your entire organization or your team, depends on what your area of responsibility is. Now, I wonder, and just to think about as I talk through these 12 elements, what would you consider to be the top 3, maybe the top 5 most essential skills to master or to build? Let's make it easier because we're time poor. What are the most essential skills to build in 2025? And the reason why we ask this question is because we begin our program with a module called Being a 21st Century Manager. And essentially what we're doing is we're re-looking at the role of the manager and challenging the prevailing reality of what we think the role of the manager is, and is it the right thing to focus on? Sounds like a riddle, but it makes sense. And some things to think about as you're pondering these questions, perhaps, as we go through the live stream. In terms of thinking about what does the market need, what are maybe the competitors up to? Think about some of the multi-generational challenges, hybrid location issues and the new norms, what the investors might need, what the employees might need, what the customers say they need, what advanced tech is out there which could help or that you should need to master. And as I said, there's no real answer here. This is a process of trial and error. And the last point is about how do we challenge what we think is this prevailing reality about what the role of the manager is. Now, the reason why I like to pose this question is because it's a question I like to ask of leaders of organizations and say, look, if you could start the organization again today from scratch, total blank sheet of paper, and you could create the role of the manager in a perfect way to describe what you want the manager to do in your organization, is it the role that managers currently play? Now, most leadership team members would say, no, it's not, because the role of the manager, of course, evolves and grows in the wild, right? This sort of evolves over time. And the idea that we're consciously creating the description, the beautiful description of the manager, in most cases is just not true. It's just evolved, kind of unguided, unhindered, and became what it became. The question that we're asking is, if you could recreate the role of the manager again from scratch, would it be different than what it currently is? And many organizations say absolutely, yes, it would be different. How different? Don't know, because they've not really spent much time thinking about it, but this is an important question to ask. There are 12 things that we focus on in our World Class Manager program that I'll focus on in a bit more detail. You can't, for some reason, see the icons. This is live, so I don't have time to change that. But there are 12 things that we focus on, and it will make much more sense as we go through. So, number 1 is we call it being a 21st century manager. And this is based on what I was just saying, where we're challenging organizations to fundamentally relook at the role of the manager going forward. Is it different? Or should it be different than how it currently is? And often we believe that it absolutely should be. So when we think about what the role of the manager is in 2024, 2025, is there something that we should change in how that works? There's a great book by a guy called Vineet Nair, who I got to see some of his stuff in the US a few years ago. He was famous for turning around HCL Technologies, a big business in India. And one of the things that he called, in a way, the mirror moment in his story. And it was looking at the reality of the challenges and the problems. And one of the stories he told, I watched an interview with him, is he talked about where they got the entire organization to submit problems that existed, and they held a party to celebrate. I think they had something like 70,000 complaints, and they held a party to celebrate 70,000 complaints, and people looked at him like, this guy is crazy. And it was a wonderful moment because he talks about what he calls the mirror moment. It was an opportunity for the organization to really face reality, not myth, not story, not conjecture, not based on what you think or I think, a real understanding of what reality looked like for the organization, and then really rethink the role of leadership and the role of management. And this is what we, again, challenge leadership team members to think about, and perhaps you can also give that some thought to for you. Number two, we look at what we call great goal setting. Now, we recognize that this is a discipline that you may have been gifted with some divine ability to help people to set goals, and some of you may be a bit challenged with doing this. It may be a challenge, an inherent challenge, because there is not much to go from, i.e. there is no clear direction of the organization, no clear strategy, no clear mission. There's not much to hang off of when it comes to setting great goals and aligning stuff. If that's the case, then that's another challenge. But again, setting great goals is a conversational discipline. Now, like this guy or dislike this guy, I don't think we can disagree that he's no good at setting goals. Exceptional, I think, at setting goals, Elon Musk. And one of the things that he did in 2006 is he created his 10-year master plan, which focused around 4 goals. I won't read them because you can probably see them on the screen. But they were 4 very specific goals he would achieve in 10 years. Now, for me, this is like smart goal setting on steroids, a really exceptional way to do this. And one of the things that he did is be very prescriptive about these 4 things he would achieve. Now, when we talk about great goal setting in organizations, it's often that people don't have these structured conversations. So again, we focus on that as a really important topic. Number 3, we look at what we call inspiring appraisal conversations, and we separate that from great goal setting for a very important reason, is that because the art, and it is an art form, I think, of having someone feel inspired in the organization. And this has got nothing to do with money, nothing to do with pay or status. This is everything to do with the quality of the conversation that we as managers have with the members of our team. So again, this might be a skill that you recognize is something that you find challenging. Again, it might be that you're lucky enough to have someone else in the organization who's really good at doing this. And it might be a case that learning from them could be a good step to try and understand how can I be better at having people feel inspired and connected to what it is that we're trying to achieve. Number 4, we focus a lot on the time challenge, on the time problem. Problem, is it a problem? I don't know, because it's like the finite thing everyone faces. It's a universal problem, maybe. This is the life expectancy numbers for men and women in England. So women 82 years, men 79, worse for guys, better for women. But, this is limited, right? So if I subtract my age from 79, this is concerning. I'm 48 years old, so it's not great, is it? I'm more than halfway there. Time is our most precious resource, and how do we utilize the time? One of the things we've looked at in respect of world-class managers is most of the really successful, great people that we keep coming across, of course, have the same 24-hour time challenge as every other human being, with a requirement to sleep probably 5 to 7 hours of that time. And therefore, they've got the same issues time-wise, but have a very different outcome in terms of productivity. And how do we best utilize time? Unfortunately, we want to try and cram all of this into like a half an hour or so, 40-minute live stream. But this is an area where we spend a lot of time focused on in our program. And if you've ever seen me talk about this, we talk about this quite a lot because, again, there are some unbelievable productivity gains to be made here, things that we should perhaps stop doing in order to try and free up time, certainly for us as a manager, because we can get bogged down in so much. Number 5 is looking at how do we improve communications. I think any organization, any country we've been to, anywhere on the planet, everyone complains about the need to improve communications. We know communications is tremendously subjective, if not totally subjective. What you believe is improved communications, I believe is not, and we're both correct. So the challenge here is not about pumping more messages, more content, more channels at human beings. I think it's a waste of time, and as an organization, I think it's a waste of money. I think it's also counterproductive because it damages the organization because there's just too much content flow, and I don't know what to really pick up on and what to be focused with. I believe, based on everything that we've seen, that the managers are the best channel of communication, and therefore, why don't we, as maybe if you're in the role of internal communications, why don't we better look at how we can harness and leverage the connections that managers have with their team. The challenge managers have is that they're often kept in the dark. So, you've got this executive team who've got exceptional context and insight about the vision, strategy, mission, but most managers don't really understand that stuff. There's a mechanism by how the leaders can help managers to understand that, which would absolutely improve the conversation or content or knowledge flow between the manager and the team member. The other challenge here is understanding the preferences. So we ask managers, and again, you may be exceptional at doing this, or you may have never asked your team. We ask managers to ask their team, what would you like to know about? How often, and how can I get that information to you? If you were to bring in someone to conduct an internal communications audit of your entire organization, it's essentially what they're doing, right? It's trying to find out about messages, about content, about channels, and about frequencies. It's exactly the same process at the team level. Ask the team, what do you want to know about? How often? How can I get that to you? If you deliver on those three things and then ask people, do you believe communications is improving? Most people would say yes. Why? Well, because for them it really is. So this is a very subjective thing. And again, what can we do to better learn about what people need? Number 6 is what we call better meetings, better results. Now, some meeting stats here, if you can see some of this grayed out text, but 70% of people admitted to bringing other work to meetings. So if you think they're there for you, they're probably not. 40% about that admitted to falling asleep in a meeting. I ran a poll on LinkedIn about 4 weeks ago, and this was 34%, but it's still very sleepy. About a third of the population admitted to falling asleep, and then about half of the population admitted that the meetings were just a total and utter waste of time. I mean, think about, how many meetings do you go to where there are so many people in the meeting who say nothing, but they'll burn an hour or two of their time. I mean, it's the most tremendous organizational waste. It's the most tremendous personal waste. If we go back to 82 years for women and 79 years for men, I mean, losing an hour or two in a meeting starts to resituate how important and how much of a total waste of time and energy this really is. So meetings are a key area for us to focus on, and building that discipline for the managers, again, is really key. Number 7 is looking at who do we serve. We all serve someone. I don't care whether you're the most important CEO or chairman in the world. We have a relationship with other key stakeholders. We all serve someone. We serve a board, and the board serves investors. Investors serve other investors. Those investors serve a wealth fund. Those investors serve, I don't know, God or something. Everyone serves someone in some respects, and everyone has got a desire to make sure that they are delivering for those key stakeholders, right? So this is the key. When we look at this, how well do we understand those key stakeholders? We recognize here, and this is one of the most famous architects. He created this building, which is in Regent's Park in central London, which is, I think it's just exquisite as a building. It's called the Royal College of Physicians. It's their building. And one of the things that he did when I understood his story is he lived and worked with them for 12 months before he began to sketch out anything to do with the building. It's one of the most wonderful stories of designing something so perfectly for someone. And he said this quote, which is, you could argue, very arrogant, but I think it's warranted if you're prepared to do the level of investigation and understanding, and to be able to create a building which is beautifully made like a wonderful suit for someone, where you just understood all of their preferences. This is in a way what Amazon are doing, right, through their clever use of data, triangulating data, using AI and all the other very clever, I'm sure, machine learning and language model stuff that they're using to be able to predict and understand human behavior, because they're understanding you in a way better than you know yourself. And this is the key, right? Delivering this exceptional service, delivering for the people internally or externally, requires that we really understand it. The challenge, the bigger the organization, the larger the management population, the harder it is to be able to take all of that data and all of that insight that exists out there that your customers are saying about you and make that meaningful for a manager population. This is a very difficult thing to accomplish in theory. In practice, it's kind of not, because this is all about trying to get this to the managers. And there are lots of ways around this. Maybe we can get into that in a separate live stream. But number 7, we look at who do we serve and making sure that we're clear on that and clear about what they understand that we understand of what they need. Number 8 is creating what we call a standout team. Now, I was interested for years of looking at CEOs' leadership teams and wondering, why is it that these people seem to be more excited about their vision, their strategy, their mission than any other people I meet in the company? Is it because these human beings are smarter? Do they have higher IQ? Do they dress better? Do they smell better? Do they dance better? There's no variable that I could point to that said, actually, that's the case. But what it is, of course, is the people who make the strategy up generally are more excited about the strategy. Not because it's inherently a better strategy than anyone else's, but because they created it. Things that you create, you're emotionally connected to, and therefore you probably think are pretty good. The challenge, of course, is that if I'm the most junior manager in an organization that employs thousands of people, I'm often let's use a nice word, I'm the beneficiary of information. I receive third, fourth, fifth hand info about what this strategy mission is. I might get access to some sort of live stream webinar where someone shares me about the messages, but it's a broadcast mechanism of understanding words, and really, unless that person transmitting that information is exceptional at being able to transmit that meaning, it doesn't really have much of an emotional connection. The key, of course, is if we look at why did those CEOs and the leadership teams get that level of emotional connection to that message? Because they had an opportunity to discuss it. The value is in the discussion. It's the dialogue, it's the debate, it's the agreement, it's the disagreement. It's the way that we talk about something. And often I, as a manager, wouldn't have much of an opportunity to sit and actually just sit with somebody in the organization and talk through what our strategy means. Interesting, but so what? What does it mean for my team? Interesting, but so what? What does it mean for me personally? Now it's interesting because I'm starting to align my role, my goal with what it seems to mean for the organizational strategy, mission, vision, purpose. Now, when we talk about alignment, as I've hopefully described in those last 15, 20 seconds, it's really all we're talking about. The key to it, of course, is a discussion. And maybe a question to ask for managers, the question we like to ask, is what do you want to be famous for? And that could be in your team, that could be in the organization, that could be in your industry, could be globally, depends how ambitious you want to be. But the idea is to find something that excites you so that we can hang off of something and create what we call a standout team. Now, the reason we talk about this again as a standout team is because, remember, your brand as a manager, like it or not, is about how people see your team. There are some teams in your organization, if your organization's big enough, that you would probably look at and you say to yourself, they look like they're having the time of their lives. They get great development. Looks like a great team to me. And that will reflect well on your view of that manager. Now, the view of that manager helps them, of course, because it's their individual brand. There are other teams that I'm sure you look at and you think to yourself, thank God I'm not in that team. I would never want to be in that team. And I would imagine that probably reflects on whoever that manager is, or maybe it's even a reflection of whoever that manager is. So your brand is really important. Of course, how people see your team is often how people will see you as a manager or as a leader as well. Number 9 is focused on what we call developing me and developing my team. Now, we recognize that about 50%, it's not a perfect science this, but about 50% of people who leave the organization will cite career growth and development as the number one reason why they left the organization. It's generally not to do with pay, it's not to do with conditions, it's generally to do with the perception of the lack of opportunity. And I say perception because I think this is all about the skill of the manager. And as you probably know in previous organizations, we've worked with charities who have like nothing, like zero budget, zilch, nada. They've got nothing to spend on development of their people, but they've got an exceptional people feedback score on how they feel about their personal growth and development. We've got organizations that have got billions and billions to spend on developing people, not billions to spend on developing people, but they generate billions in revenue, and therefore they've got a lot of money to invest in employee engagement programs, staff development programs, organizational development, learning and development programs that should, in a way, have people feel over the moon about their growth and development, but they don't. They leave the organization because they don't feel there are opportunities to learn and grow. It's not about the money. It's about the skill of the manager. I'm a lecturer at a couple of universities. For anyone maybe tuned in from Bayes Business School, hello. But I probably do around 3 or 4, maybe 5 this year, lectures at Bayes Business School in London. And one of the things that I like to talk with undergrads and with postgrads about is the idea that there is what we call the dream manager. The dream manager. The dream manager, in a way, should do 2 things. One is that they should understand you well enough to be able to start to figure out your hopes, your dreams, your ambitions, and understand where you are and where you might want to go. And if they're really good, then maybe they understand a bit of your backstory as well, and they care to actually understand it. The second part of the dream manager is that they're well connected, they're well networked. They understand the organization in a pretty good way. If I understand you really well and I understand the organization really well, I can start to be quite entrepreneurial, actually, or intrapreneurial, as people call it, and connect up opportunities that exist in the organization, opportunities that exist maybe at the more strategic level with something that you feel would grow and develop you, because I know that it actually would interest you based on the fact that I actually know who you are and I know where you want to get to. So there's a very smart way here to combine the strength of the individual, getting hyped up, getting too excited, the strength of the individual with what there is for the organization as well. And I think this is an exceptional way to do it. And in theory, again, this should cost you like nothing, £0, $0, 0 dirhams, zilch, nada, because this is all about the ingenuity, the entrepreneurial nature of the manager to be able to understand the individual and, of course, understand the organization as well. Number 10 is all about what we call managing up. And this is about how do we build relationships with other senior stakeholders in the organization where we know that this is important, right? We've all got other senior stakeholders, both internally and perhaps externally, that we want to build key relationships with. Some of those people might be easy to build relationships with. Some of them might be more difficult. They actually might be quite tricky individuals to get along with. They might be difficult to access. It might require you going against one of the sort of more, I guess, political natures of the structure of the organization to do that. But this is something that we recognize is a big issue for practically every organization. And then the final one we talk about is what we call presenting with presence, or penultimate actually. Presenting with presence is about how do we get ourselves seen in the way that we want to be seen. This is a big area for many managers in organizations, and it's something that we focus a lot on because this isn't about your presenting skill. This is more about your ability to have people see you in the way that you want to be seen. Interestingly, when we talk about confidence, so lots of people say that they're not confident in talking to people. This is based on our own research of 15,500 managers in 50 countries, 45% of managers, and speaking in front of a group of people is one of human beings' most significant fears. 41%, death is number 7, dogs number 10, but 41% say speaking before a group is a significant issue. And then the final one is what we call being a strategic leader, is where we look at how do we as a manager understand everything across the organization and make sure that we're perfectly aligned in a way to the agenda of the senior people. Now, talking of senior people, this is a perfect setup. As I said, I'm here in Egypt, in Sharm el-Sheikh, for the 2024 rendezvous, which is the Insurance Federation of Egypt. And we're delighted because we're going to be joined by the chairman, Mr. Ala El-Zahiri, who's been here. He's the founder of this entire movement. And we're very lucky to have him join us for the remainder of the live stream. So, Mr. El-Zahiri, thank you. So just to introduce this gentleman to my right, we met, I guess, probably a month or so ago, exactly. A couple of months ago, and I was really blown away because what I've understood is that he was the real visionary leader behind this entire movement and behind the rendezvous that have happened now for the last 6 years. We're in the 6th one. I've arrived here in Sharm el-Sheikh in Egypt, my first time in Egypt, my first time, of course, in Sharm el-Sheikh, and just been blown away for a couple of reasons, just to share with you. One is the scale of this. So there are around 1,200 delegates that are here from, I think, 40 countries or more. The organization of this, and I've been to a lot of amazing conferences around the world, so this is a thank you to, I guess, your team and to the Federation's team. And also we have one of the media leaders from Hannah, who's also here with us. I mean, the work that the team have done is truly exceptional. Night after night, day after day, the quality of the speakers, the events, and so on is just exceptional. So I thought this would be a great opportunity to try and bring to life the work of the Federation and also some of the macro challenges that are facing the insurance industry, both here and also globally, as we have the opportunity to have Alahi, who's also the chairman, of course, of the Federation, but also is the CEO of GIG here in Egypt, insurance business. Thank you. Mm-hmm. So maybe we can hear a little bit about your story and a little bit about, learn a bit about the Federation as well. Be great.
Yeah, my story will take a long time, so I'll try to make it short as much as I can. I've been in the insurance business since 34 years. During this time, I worked here in Egypt for a public sector company for 2 years, and then I moved to a private sector company for 6 or 7 years as well, and then I moved to the States for 3 years, working in the insurance industry there. And then I came back to Egypt, continue in the private sector when I moved to Chubb Insurance Egypt. And then since 2005, I joined GIG Egypt, and since then I'm the CEO of the company. I'm also heading the Insurance Federation in Egypt, as you said. I used to be the chairman of the General Arab Federation, Insurance Federation, and also the chairman of the FAIR organization. This is the African Asian Insurance Federation. and I'm a board member both right now. I'm not the chairman, but I'm board member. I'm also heading the insurance committee at the American Chamber of Commerce, and board of director of 3 companies belong to GIG in addition to my role as GIG Egypt. I'm board member at GIG Jordan. I'm board member at GIG Turkey, Gulf Sigortu, and also I'm vice chairman of our GIG Life Takaful here in Egypt. This is non-executive role, in addition to my role as a CEO of GIG Egypt. And I enjoy my work. I've done some studies in the insurance and diploma. I have some also participations in a lot of conferences around the Middle East, and speaker in some of these conferences. And I've won some pretty good prizes. One of them is the insurance profession insurance year of the Middle East in the year 2019. And also I've been chosen the best CEO in Africa insurance companies in the year 2022.
Wow.
Yeah. So as I said, it's a longer story, but I try to make it short as much as I can.
It's a great story, and I guess in terms of then, well, firstly, I don't think you need any more work to do. You know, to do this. This is amazing. And then in terms of yesterday, we heard from the chairman of the Financial Regulatory Authority, which for me as an outsider to the country was a real education of understanding some of the big strategic challenges. And it hadn't occurred to me, of course, the role in terms of economic development that a much more evolved insurance sector will now play for the economic development of the country. So maybe, again, any of your thoughts on the sort of strategic nature of this, because I think it was exciting to see the developments and how this will help to change and grow the economy here.
Yeah, to be honest, in cooperation with the Financial Regulatory Authority and Federation, we do have a very good cooperation. We've worked together for 4 years in order to have the new insurance law issued in Egypt. They've done a great job, the regulatory, the FRA, the Financial Regulatory Authority, in terms of accommodate most of our requirements as an industry. They have made an open dialogue with the Federation as well as the insurance companies, and they extend this to other stakeholders like third-party administrator who work with medical insurance players, to also the brokers, either individual or companies. They've heard a lot of suggestions from a lot of stakeholders, and they came up with a very good law that we be pleased to have as an Egyptian. This law has been issued in July this year, and they started implementing the law. The good thing about this law, it will allow the insurance companies to get really strengthened more by increasing the paid-up capital. We used to have a 60 million minimum paid-up capital. Now they go up to 150 million. This is like an Egyptian pound, of course. Yeah. This is like 4-time increase. And when you have such an increase in the capital, and the good thing, the law allows the regulator to increase it more without going back to the parliament. Right. So now they're discussing actually also to go more than the 250 million. And this will allow the companies to retain more of the business and reduce the export of free insurance. So this will have a solid and strong insurance company in the market. Also, the law allows to have a compulsory schemes, and in the law it says we can have up to 8 compulsory schemes, but the law allows the regulator to increase compulsory scheme if they believe that they should introduce compulsory scheme, like we do not have for the time being a professional indemnity policy for doctors, for instance, which is very important. And of course in UK, in the US, and most of the Europe and most of the countries, it's a mandatory for a doctor to work to have a professional indemnity policy, because he can make a mistake, unintentionally of course, but if he doesn't have an insurance company, who will pay for this mistake for the client? Yeah. I mean, for the citizen. So this is one of the really good things that they have put in the law. And this professional indemnity policy, of course, will have some limits and everything. This to be agreed with, with the regulator later. But this is one of the things that will improve the penetration in Egypt. Not only that, but they introduce other new policies like divorce insurance. You've heard it maybe yesterday during the session. Divorce insurance, simply, if a divorce happens The woman, in order to take her rights, she has to go to court in most cases. And the court will state what is her rights. It's unlike US and UK. Divorce happens, you get a 50% from the husband, of his wealth and everything. In Egypt, she has to go to court. So we came up with a policy that will allow her to take some money to help her to live with children until she get the court decision. Right. So this is a new, this will be compulsory as well. Yeah. So once she get married, they pay a very small amount of money, and this amount of money is a premium for the divorce issues. So we came up with 8 new schemes like this, and will be all compulsory, like comprehensive general liability for stadium. You go for stadium, something happen, a fire or anything happen, nowadays you cannot get a compensation. So you go to a mall, a big mall or cinema or theater, if you have a problem, you cannot get the compensation. So the new law will allow for compulsory compensation to be paid by insurance company, and the owner of the mall or the owner of the cinema or the theater will pay the premium. So this will actually affect 2 things. The first thing is it will increase the penetration because the awareness will be higher, because if you get a compensation for something as a citizen that you did not pay the premium for first place, someone else paid the premium instead of you. So you will get the compensation, you will feel the taste of the insurance. And you say, well, why I don't have insurance for my car? Why I don't have insurance for my house? So that will increase the penetration. The other thing, it will increase also the premium of the insurance company, so the market in total, so it will increase the penetration as well as the premium of the insurance companies. Yesterday we heard a lot about digitalization, and this morning we had a very, very good session about digitalization and AI. The regulator is moving heavily into and quickly into digitalize the market. Yeah. Like for Marco Insurance, you cannot imagine, as a company that I'm managing, the GEG Egypt, we issue 100,000 insurance policy per month. Per month, 100,000 insurance policy per month, wow, digitally for the low-income people. And we do not see the client. We issue the policy. We send it to him by SMS. We collect the money electronically. We pay the claims in 48 hours electronically. So there is no expense whatsoever. So this will really increase the awareness and also increase the penetration. If you issue 100,000 as a company, the other companies can issue more. But this is really a good step. And that's all would not have happened unless the regulator is listening to us and really driving the market towards the digitalization era.
Yeah. Wow. Again, this is a perfect link because for those on the stream, we talked earlier on in the session about the link between strategy and how we make that meaningful as leaders, as managers. And I guess what you've just done so eloquently is describe some of the huge strategic opportunities. The challenge for me as this is the people leadership, people management space. I'm hearing all of this, and it's like, wow, this is big stuff. And then I sort of go back to my job, and I've got 3 or 4 members of the team. How do I make sense of this? And in a way, like, what might be your advice for leaders of how to take these exciting things, macro topics, and make them meaningful for your everyday person?
Yeah, I think the first thing is you need to really define where is your obstacles and what is your goals. If you know exactly why this insurance market has not been developed, although this is the oldest insurance market in the region, this market has been active since 125 years. So we should have led the Middle East market. Unfortunately, we're not. So there was not a clear strategy of the market. There were bits and pieces of what we should do and how we could do it. But now we put a 4-year strategy at the Federation. The first one started the year 2019, and the second one started the year 2020. And we have achieved a lot of the strategic points that we have put together. We put our goals, we put together the action plan, and we went to the regulator. We told them this is what we want from the government. And we went back to the insurance sector. We met with the CEOs of the insurance companies many times, and we told them, guys, this is what we want. And also we wanted to know what you want from us as a federation. So we have understand that the market need new products, new ways of marketing tools, digitalization, transformation into digitalization, and building capacities. Building capacity is one of the most important things. So we put our hand on the weakness points of the market, and we put together the strategy. It's not an easy job, to be honest, but it needs a lot of comprehensive cooperation between the public sector, is the arm of the public sector for us is the regulator, and the private sector being the insurance companies. And I'll give an example. We've noticed that the travel insurance market in Egypt producing 60 million Egyptian pound worth of premium on a yearly basis. And we said, hey guys, a lot of Egyptian travel abroad. How come that we have only 60 million Egyptian premium? So we went to the regulator. We told them, we have an idea. Why don't you have a policy issued for each Egyptian has a passport? We have 22 million passports in Egypt. So the 22 million passport, we wanted to issue 22 million policy. So the regulator really received the idea very well. And we have agreed with them to issue compulsory travel insurance policy for each individual that has a new passport or renewing his passport.
Exceptional.
So with a little amount, 350 Egyptian pound. This is as little as $7. And the coverage that we give is a 30,000 euro for each time you travel abroad.
Oh, for medical and for...
Yeah, so each time you travel abroad, you get a 30,000 euros, and you pay only $7 for 7 years. So $1 a year, you get 30,000 for each time you travel. If you travel like 10 times, you get every time 30,000. And guess what? The premium moved from 60 million to 1.2 billion Egyptian pound in 1 year.
Wow.
And this is expected to be on a yearly basis. So that's such ideas.
Yeah.
When you understand exactly what is your obstacle, you can put your strategy. And if you have a real public sector endeavor and someone who really understands what you want exactly, they will be able to understand and help you. So the message is the cooperation between the private sector and public sector is very important for this market.
Yeah. Wow. And again, we listening to this as a manager, we talked about the development opportunities that exist for people. Again, if I was newer into the industry, what you're describing now is tremendously exciting because I can start to see how many opportunities there might be, and I might not see that in the position I'm in. So again, this is inspirational, I think, for the next generation of people into the industry.
I agree with
It's probably never been a better time to be in the industry than now.
Right. You're right. And actually, with the new law, and we didn't get a chance to charge base more in the new law. The new law allow also medical insurance companies only to be issued, to be established companies for medical insurance only.
Yeah.
You can establish a micro insurance only. So a one line of business was not really an option before.
Right.
You cannot establish a company for just one line of business. Now the new law allows it. So we understand that this will open the market for more investment to come, FDIs to come from overseas, and which will help the country a lot.
So can I ask you the final question? If you were new into the industry now, you've just graduated, you've just secured your first role in a good company, good firm, where would you now in 2024, 2025? And actually, our theme for next year is what we call Thrive in 25, right?
Okay.
So where would you focus your efforts, given all the opportunities that exist? If you were new to the industry, where would you be putting your energy?
Yeah, I'm glad that you asked this question because every time we ask ourselves, what is the next opportunity? What do you have? I can tell you in figures, actually. I like figures. So if you imagine the Egyptian people who are 107 million Egyptian people, the low-income people is about 40%, 40 or 45%. So this is for us a low income.
And what would you describe as a low income?
Low-income people, that's people who can only afford to get like between 3,000 and 6,000 Egyptian pound per month only.
Okay.
This is as low as $120.
Okay. Yeah.
Okay, so this is a low income per month. Huh? So, of course, these people cannot afford to buy insurance. The ideas that we came up as a federation to encourage the companies to issue microinsurance policies for a maximum 100 pound per year, like £8 per month. £8 per month, like less than 10 cents or 15 cents per month, which is a minimum amount. So if we have succeeded to issue since 2018 until now as a market, 6 million policies for this low-income people.
Right.
If we're talking about 40% out of 110 million, you have 44 million inhabitants. And 6 million policy issued, so the distance between 6 million and 44, this is opportunity. You can go from 6 million policies to 44 million policies if you put in effort and do some sort of marketing. So if I'm coming to the market, I'll invest in a microinsurance company. I would need only like 100 million Egyptian pound worth of capital for microinsurance only. And the good thing is that it could be life and life under one roof, so it's a composite. 100 million is not really a huge amount of money, but you will have a chance to tackle the opportunity between 6 million and 44 million clients.
Wow.
Yeah, which is
Wow.
great.
So for those potential investors out there, this is a great opportunity that you've probably not uncovered anywhere else. So I just wanted to say a huge thank you to Allah. Thank you for inviting me to be part of the Rendezvous, which has been an amazing experience. I've also got 2 of my team members here who have absolutely loved it. And we look forward to seeing you again next month, as we're going to call it Thrive in 25 for the final December live stream for 2024. See you soon. Thanks for joining.